All right, boys, another day, another build, and we've got a lot of these coming out. It should be probably coming out in and around the launch of Season 2, a little bit after, a little bit before. And this one here is the Rip and Tear Rend Rupture. This is a new Rend Rupture build. It's taken use of, making use, of all of the new changes that are coming in Season 2. A lot of the new Paragon changes, new uniques, new legendary aspects, and, well, a whole bunch of stuff. We're going to break it all down in this video, explain what you're looking for, how it works, and how to play it, and all of that. But let's start with the skills, and we'll use the skill tree to explain all of this sort of finer details here. So we have Lunging Strike, and we have Combat Lunging Strike with a lot of builds this season. Berserking is extremely powerful thanks to Blood Rage, and we'll talk about that in the Paragon node section of this video. But yeah, we get some Berserking here, we get a nice little heal when we hit healthy enemies, and it has a gap closer. So Lunging Strike, it's just a good all-rounder, and you should expect to see this in a lot of builds this season. And just as a quick pro tip, set this one to your dual-wield weapons, slightly faster attack animation, and we're not really bothered about damage with Lunging Strike, it's not for that. Next, we have Rend, of course. Bleed build with Rend will have Rend in it. We're using Violent Rend as well because this gives us a multiplicative damage increase to vulnerable enemies. Not vulnerable damage, it's not increased vulnerable damage, so this is multiplicative, so this is very, very powerful. However, if you're still kind of like leveling of your gear, it's not quite up to scratch, Furious Rend is a fantastic option if you're having Fury issues still as well. So you can swap those based on where you are in your character's progression. We then have Strategic Rally and Cry. This will help us generate an absolute ton of Fortify and keep our Fortify topped much more consistently. And we have one point into Challenging Shout, which will help with damage reduction. We have Mighty Warcry as well, again, to help really bolster that Fortify. Very strong emphasis on Fortify these days, just making sure it's like constantly ticking up as much as possible so we get all of the damage reduction benefits from it as consistently as possible. We have Raid Leader, big heal when we have all of our shouts active. And then we have the Berserking passives naturally, because there's going to be a lot of Berserking in this build. Rupture is like insane this season. It's going to be hitting ridiculously hard. Now, I actually did a build in Season 1 where it was a no shout, no barber bleed build with Rupture. And Rupture was insane. Like, actually insane. So the way Rupture works is with Enhanced Rupture, you can deal an insane amount of AoE bleed damage by sort of skewering as many enemies as possible. So for every enemy that you hit, I believe the tooltip's incorrect here, it should be like 70% bleeding damage. When you hit an enemy or multiple enemies with Rupture, this stacks. That's what I'm trying to say. So that bleed will be multiplied by how many enemies you hit with Rupture, and now it scales with your strength and deals multiplicatively more damage every 50 strength that you have. This will be insane. If you skewer like a good group of enemies, this AoE bleed will just wipe rooms clean. Also, the attack speed bonus from this is like bonkers now. They've just been making it better and better and better and better. Rupture is insane. Like, seriously, this is going to be super insane. How to use this as well, you want to make sure that you're opening with Rupture. You want to open with Rupture because we are going to be using Fields of Crimson, so you want to generate that pool of blood under an enemy for increased bleed damage, but also you want to get the attack speed, and then you just basically start using it on cooldown from there on in. We have the bleed passives, of course. Very sort of generic stuff here. Thick Skin, counter offensive. 2 points into heavy-handed, and we're using Gushing Wounds. It's a bleed build, and we want to be able to leverage crit in our build, and Gushing Wounds will help us do that. Now we'll go and take a look at the gear, the aspects, and everything like that. First of all, real quick, technique, axe, two-handed axe, nothing's really changed there. Excuse me, I've been coughing through all of my guides today. Man, I feel bad for future Dalkora that's got to do all the editing. So let's talk about the gear. Now, I will not go through the stat priority because it's all written in here. It's quite a lot to go through, but they are there. Try and get as close to these as you can. It's going to be really hard to get all 4 of them, and that's going to be a big part of what you'll be grinding for throughout the season. But these are the best in slot stats written for every single piece of gear in the guide. Of course, the guide will be in the description down below. And let's quickly break down sort of the aspects and the uniques then instead. Tuskhelm of Uritz. This is going to just be a staple in any Berserking build until you get a Harlequin's Crest anyways. just gives you an insane amount of value if you're using berserking. So there's a chance when you proc berserking while already berserking to get multiplicative 15% damage increase, 2 fury per second, and a 10% cooldown reduction. That's just insane, right? It's really, 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 really good. We don't know what stats it has on it, but already it's a very attractive helmet. We have anemia, so that when we hit bleeding enemies, there's a chance to stun them, which would just help with general like damage reduction and stuff like that. Relentless berserkers. This means that as we're rending targets, we'll be extending our berserking duration quite consistently. Next is Tybalt's Will. Now, this will be another staple in a lot of Barbarian builds, especially those that are using Triple Shout, because Triple Shout builds are able to maintain a very high uptime on Unstoppable, thanks to enhanced Rallying Cry, of course, and we have very, very, very good cooldown reduction for our shouts. And while we're Unstoppable, we'll be dealing 20 to 40% increased damage. That's already insane. But also when we become Unstoppable, we'll gain 50 primary resource as well. Really, really, really good pants. Again, we don't really know what the stats on these are yet, but you know, obviously Diablo are doing a really good job of making sure that the stats on pieces of unique gear are better, and we've seen that with how they've changed a lot of the pre-existing ones, so I'm not too worried about that. We have Ghost Walk. Now again, this is very important for a build like this that doesn't have like Whirlwind in it, because it means when we're Unstoppable we can pass through enemies so that we don't get body blocked into doorways with explosions and so on and so forth. So this will be a must pick as well. Accelerating. Again, attack speed's going to scale this build up massively because it allows us to apply more and more and more and more bleeds. So we definitely are going to be making very good use of this. Limitless Rage. That's kind of a household name for Barbarians at the moment. So this is going to definitely be a part of our build. Just a generic damage boost, a very powerful one at that. Skull Breakers. Now this is going to be quite fun. Every time we stun an enemy, we'll deal up to 40% of their total bleed damage as a physical one-off hit. So this is going to be taking huge chunks out of enemies when our anemia proc. So this will be really fun. Our unique of choice for weapon, Crimson Field. It's just insane now. Like it's gotten a lot better with every patch. It's really good now. It's going to give us a lot of Rupture uptime, has nice stats on it, and the legendary effect gives our bleeds a lot more juice, especially on boss fights. This is really, really, really good to take. We have Bold Chieftain's Echo and Fury combo. It's a shout build. It is what it is, but this is how we maintain our shouts, and this is how we keep our Fury up. And then we have Disobedience rocking over here on the Amulet, because Disobedience is, we can get like armor capped so easily with Disobedience on the Amulet this season, because they've buffed the absolute crazy pants out of it. It's like really, really, really strong now. So moving on to gems, we have Amethysts now, and this is just, it's a bleed build, and now, you know, with how things are calculated like additively, you know, crit and vulnerable damage, or like this definitely looks to be taking the crown here with a dot build. Rubies in the gear, and then jewelry, we have gone for diamonds. Diamonds is for now just a stopgap, a temporary stopgap, until we see really how the resistances affect us as Barbarians in the game. I will be keeping this part of the build up to date very, very frequently. So this may change to a different gem type in the future, depending on how, again, our resistances pan out. So if you're watching this video, don't worry, the written version of the build that is in the description will have the most up-to-date information on it at all time. All I do is play Barbarian. All I do is play Diablo 4. I can get this done. Don't worry. This will be up to date, but for now, we'll just hit these because they're a generic catch-all, right? Resist all, easy peasy. Now, vampiric powers, let's quickly go through these. Pray the Weak and Uncursed, a Cursed Touch. This is a very nice combo. So a Cursed Touch gives us a lucky hit chance to apply Vampiric Curse and also spread it to nearby enemies. And then Pray the Weak applies vulnerability to any enemy affected by said curse, and also increases the damage that we do to vulnerable enemies multiplicatively. So very, very good combo here, and it allows us to get those cursed spirits up and running as well, which will actually pop off every time we cast one of our shouts, actually minus War Cry. So Rallying Cry, Chinese Shout, that will release the spirits. Release the spirits! And from what it looks like, they do quite a lot of damage, so you know, it should be pretty decent. Now, Sanguine Brace is going to be a mainstay in most builds, gives us Fortify every time we kill an enemy, as well as 8% crit when our fortify is above 50% health. Very powerful indeed. Very low cost as well, just an instant take. We have Undying, which will heal us for 3% every time we cast a skill. So that is a lot with our attack speed. This will just be like mega healing. And then we have Flowing Veins, which is 60% increased damage over time if an enemy is moving or affected by Vampiric Curse. Now, both of these will be pretty easy to mark off. We're going to be kind of like moving quite quickly ourselves, but also Vampiric Curse should be going out pretty frequently too as well. So just a very, very easy dot multiply here. As always, we're going to have a full written just breakdown of everything here, like gone through and written everything in all of these independent sections if you want to get into more detail. But let's quickly tie this one off by going through the Paragon board here with the hopes that I'm not going to cough. My throat is ruined today. Pretty generic start here. We have Exploit, but moving on to the next board, we have Disembowel. This gives us some cooldown reduction, increased bleeding damage, but here is a big component of this build, Blood Rage. So killing a bleeding enemy, which is going to be all of our enemies, gives us a 10% chance to grant Berserking for 5 seconds. This should be going off very often. Not only that, however, and this is the really exciting part, is that our damage dealt, so all damage that we deal, is increased by 25% multiplicatively, increased by the 25% of our total amount of damage while berserking bonus, which we're stacking a lot in our gear, but also a butt ton of it in the actual Paragon board itself. So we'll see that they've got some rare nodes up here, plus increased duration. Now, just a quick note on increased duration. It doesn't increase how much you can berserk. It's capped at 5 seconds unless you have Unbridled Rage. It just means that if you have something that gives you like plus 3 seconds of berserking, and you have like, you know, plus 50% berserk duration, it's now 4.5. It doesn't make your 5 seconds now also 7.5 seconds. It doesn't work like that. So just bear that in mind. You don't want to over invest in berserk duration, but we are picking some of it up. Next node, we have Marshal. It's a shout build, of course. We have Marshal. Then we have Decimator. Now, with Decimator, we're only really getting the first part of this, but it's super valuable still, which is every time we damage an vulnerable enemy, we increase our damage by 10% multiplicatively. If we happen to overpower a vulnerable enemy, we get another 10% for 5 seconds. But that's we're not focusing on that. It's a nice cherry on the cake sort of thing, but it's not our main focus. We have Wrath, helps us generate a bunch of fury, helps us with a bunch of crit damage as well. Then we have more berserk damage as well as damage to elites. Then here we have Ire. This is going to give us an insane amount of damage while berserking, which feeds into Blood Rage, as well as some damage reduction against elites. So I see a 75 strength out of 40. Whew, that is going to be big. Okay, and then finally we have Hemorrhage. And Hemorrhage is very similar to Blood Rage, except this scales our damage up by, our bleeding damage up by 15% of our vulnerable damage. So works in a very similar type way, just scales a different damage from a different stat, but really cool. I love how that works. It makes gearing much more interesting this season. And we've picked up a couple of rare damage nodes here as well. So that is the Paragon board. This is everything all together. Again, as I said, just like quickly, as far as rotation goes, I'll open with Rupture, then, you know, pop your shouts and just start spamming Rend and then use Rupture on cooldown. You can work in, if you want, a Shaco or a Harlequin's Crest into this build instead of a Mighty Oryx. You could as well, if you got a Grandfather, swap out Fields of Crimson for that as well. It will make the playstyle a little clunkier, but you will definitely be hitting a lot harder. So I mean, it's probably worth it. But yeah, I mean, hopefully you find this build useful. Let me know that you enjoyed it, found it helpful, or anything like that by giving the video a like. I'll much appreciate it. If you want to catch all of my Diablo content, just general commentary, especially guides, Barbarian guides more specifically, then don't forget to give the channel a sub. And check out the live stream. I'm trying desperately not to cough here. And check out the live stream. Link in the description below. I stream every day, and I'll be participating in the race to 100 as a solo hardcore barbarian. If you want to catch that, cheer me on. Yeah, we'll be doing that obviously non-stop from the launch of Season 2. And yeah, fingers crossed I can place higher this time. Did all right. Rank 7 in the world last time. I'm going for higher this one. But yeah, take care. I'm wrapping this one up. Cheers.